couldn't have asked for a better introduction for the next section, which is how can One Health be applied to current medical school curriculum practice. And I'd like to ask you for these reports. We'll have 3 speakers. Reports from academic and curriculum setting institutions regarding their One Health efforts. Dr. Berrian, Dr. Gray, and Dr. Ruiz de Castaneda.
Yeah, that's a complicated one, no worry.
All right, so first I want to extend my gratitude for the conference organizers. This has been a really interesting and fun event. And also for the Einstein College of Medicine for hosting us. I'm always excited to participate in a One Health conference where I, as a veterinarian, I am the minority. So it's been wonderful to network with all of you. So I am coming from Ohio State, and where I am, we like to start off our talks by engaging the audience quickly with a quick OH, in which you say? I-O, yes, yes, let's try it again. O-H? I-O. Perfect. And so it wasn't lost on me when I started working at Ohio State. O-H, One Health, right? So what a perfect alternate talk of what I like to think O-H-I-O really means, which is One Health in Ohio. So I thought you all would appreciate that. So obviously there's, we're all here, we understand the reason that why there is a case for One Health. With changing population dynamics, globalization, all these have these really complex, some call wicked problems that we're facing as humanity. And this nice little visual shows what's happening with the global population dynamics up until 2100. And we can see really with this expansion happening mostly in parts of Africa and Asia, what that's going to do for disease dynamics and global health problems. And so there's a need to have a broader definition of what One Health is. Dr. Madoff, I believe, talked about trying to get away a little bit from always talking about emerging infectious diseases. While we know these are very important and a natural place for this collaboration between health disciplines, we do need to think about things in broader terms and really push for a broader definition of One Health. We've had some good examples of antimicrobial resistance and the wicked problem that is going to be facing. This infographic shows us the mortality that's going to be attributable to antimicrobial resistance really in 30 years. So diseases that are currently treatable with our arsenal of antimicrobials will not be treatable with those same antimicrobials in 30 years. So just trying to give a broader idea of what One Health is and how we as academic institutions can play a role in this. Dr. Nyaba showed a great example of vector-borne diseases and how climate changes can impact the distribution of our vectors for infectious diseases, but climate change also has impacts for other diseases and chronic diseases, asthma and cancer, air pollution, how that's going to impact heat stress. So really a lot of natural areas where we can be working together across disciplines. And of course, these changes that we're facing aren't equitable. They're going to affect our tropical areas the most, which also coincidentally happens to be where we're going to see these greatest population dynamic changes over the next 80 years. So, and then one of my favorite infographics talking about food and water safety and security is this one from the Institute of Medicine talking about the well-traveled salad. So 10 very common ingredients in a salad you might even enjoy today come from 37 different countries. So the issue of globalization of our food supply, while you think that maybe you're in an isolated area, you don't travel, these issues aren't a concern for you, well, food safety security problems can come to you directly, maybe even on your fork. So we do need to be thinking about that in those terms as well. And then this one, in terms of livelihood sustainability, the UN provides the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which really is a call to action, what we can strive for over the next 20 years in terms of ending poverty, water, resources, climate change. Really, this is a One Health framework. So it provides a really good approach for how we can, what we should be striving for in terms of One Health activity. So at Ohio State, we try to broaden this idea of what One Health is, keeping that in mind in terms of how we educate our students and how we build capacity globally. So it really is looking at how we can influence, using our science to influence policy at the interface. And Dr. Mazet did a great job of talking about that interface, not only including animal and humans and the environment, but also including that important component of plants. And the challenge as academic institutions, how are we going to build capable professionals who can influence policy and make those impacts sustainable? So one of the core goals, I guess four institutional-wide core goals of Ohio State and almost every institution, academic institution, are really these pillars of teaching and learning, making sure that we're creating students that are engaged and our academic institutions are always student-centered. We're involved with outreach and engagement that is not only local, where we are in space, but also globally. And then doing research innovation that's cutting edge and sharing those findings with the greater global community and really trying to solve the world's most pressing problems. So these are some of the wicked problems I shared with you earlier. And then being responsible in terms of our resource management so these institutions can be sustainable. So one of the major global One Health initiatives here at Ohio State is the Global One Health Initiative, or GOHI. So this was founded in 2009. It really started as a task force in order to provide an institutional framework for interdisciplinary work across the campus. So we're fortunate to have 7 of the health sciences locally on the Columbus campus. So it really does facilitate a lot of that cross-connection and training of our students. And the idea being that we're not only trying to do training of our students, but also taking these messages and our findings to the broader community through strategic global partners. So as I mentioned, we started with the 7 health sciences, but has since grown from including expertise from 13 colleges, including food agriculture sciences, human ecology, education, the School of Communication, and really trying to increase the disciplinary reach of our One Health activities. And the idea of that is really trying to involve the students. We've, through training efforts, creating capable professionals through the One Health training activities on campus, as well as having them go abroad and really share this message of capacity building locally and building capacity abroad. So these are some of the activities the students have been involved in. Vaccination clinics, where they've done tens of thousands of rabies vaccine to really try to promote grassroots impact, as well as training people locally to provide those same vaccines. These are some of the locations that GOHI is currently working in. You'll see primarily East Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, but also parts of Central and South America. And then these are a smattering of the global priorities and projects that GOHI is currently involved in. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of just a few of these, and then I have some more information certainly I can share with you about more of the projects that we're involved in. So one of the flagship activities that GOHI has done is the One Health Summer Institute. This was first started in 2012, where we're sending faculty from Ohio State to conduct workshops and trainings, hands-on workshops in our partner countries in East Africa. So this year, this past May through August, we did 4 different workshops, 2 in Ethiopia and 2 in Kenya. And we actually were able to include not only faculty from OSU, but also from 9 other institutions. And we had 875 trainees from actually all over Africa that came to the workshops in the 2 countries. And it really is key for science networking and beneficial for both our participants in country as well as our trainers. Some of the topics that they cover: molecular epidemiology, food safety, microbiome and research, as well as some of the One Health competencies that we talked about a little bit, Dr. Mazet shared, in terms of leadership and communication. That's central to the One Health curriculum. And I wanted to share this photo. So this is Dr. Vanessa Hale, who is pictured here in the center, one of my colleagues in the Department of Veterinary Preventive Medicine. So her first time attending the One Health Summer Institute was this past summer, where she went to Addis Ababa University to share her research on microbiome. And when she went, she was a little hesitant, not knowing what information she should share with the workshop participants, because there wasn't a single next generation sequencer in the country of Ethiopia. She didn't want to share information that would just be frustrating, because they couldn't actually be participating in that research. But she was told, no, the workshop participants are hungry for cutting edge information. Please share with them anything you would for a US institution. And so she did. And she provided an overview of microbiome research, starting stratified from the very basics all the way up to the cutting edge research she was doing in her own lab. And at the workshop break, participants came up to her and told her, oh yes, I'm involved with microbiome research of esophageal cancer, breast cancer, AIDS and microbiome research. I'm sending my sequences to Korea or to Germany. And so she was just floored to know that even with these significant infrastructure challenges, that she had collaborators in Ethiopia. And so this really sparked a collaboration, and since this institute that happened just this summer, she's already had collaborators that she's working on papers and proposals to go forward. So it really is a bi-directional collaboration. One of the other curriculum development and training things that OSU is involved in is the OIE, the World Organization for Animal Health, Veterinary Education Twinning Program. And what that tries to do is partner a developed country with a accredited College of Veterinary Medicine with either developing or in transition countries so that they can help share resources and really help them bring up their educational materials so that their graduates can have what they call day one competencies to address some of the One Health needs and national veterinary services that they need to accomplish with their veterinary workforce. So what we essentially have done, and this is led by Dr. Armando Hoet, is really helping them define what the gaps are in their curriculum and trying to assess that curriculum, develop new curriculum, and then implement it and evaluate it in a very strategic way that's aligned with the OIE standards. And then the second task that the twinning program is really this human resource development. So developing the faculty, and that's really where the One Health Summer Institute comes into play. Student training, so having exchanges between veterinary students at Ohio State as well as our twinning partner, which is the University of Gondar in Ethiopia, and then providing collaborations for the research and outreach and engagement. And then, obviously more important, other types of curriculum development initiatives that we're involved in beyond infectious disease research or veterinary education. There's currently a program with the School of Communication, Nicole Kraft, and the newly formed Journalism and Communication Department in Gondar, where they're working on a curriculum for One Health communication. So showing how they can work in tandem to develop competencies for One Health communication. And then moving to a different region of work that OSU is involved in, this is the F.I.D.S.A program, or the Caribbean Integrated Surveillance System on Antimicrobial Resistance in Agriculture. So 14 different Caribbean countries are participating in antimicrobial susceptibility and resistance work. And this is essentially capacity building in this region and bringing antimicrobial susceptibility testing where there wasn't any prior capacity to do that, and really involving our faculty with trying to build these programs in these countries, and that's been quite successful. And then I am involved in the Associate Director of this Veterinary Public Health Specialization, the Master of Public Health. So this is just a typical Ohio State, a Master of Public Health degree that's at Ohio State, and Veterinary Public Health happens to be one of our specialization tracks among the 7 others listed here. And really this is a One Health focus where we're trying to bring in not only veterinarians and veterinary students, but other disciplines to learn about this human-animal interface and to prepare public health workers that have this idea animal diseases are important for public health. And any student, graduate student, professional student at Ohio State can supplement or augment their curriculum with the Graduate Certificate in Global One Health. So this is a way to formalize One Health training at Ohio State, and courses are available in some of the topics listed above. And really, again, it's trying to bring in disciplines from all over to have more formalized training in some of the One Health competencies that we've outlined. Okay, and then digital learning. So currently we have 10 free online courses available through the Canvas platform for any student that wants, a student locally abroad, working professionals that wants to expand their knowledge of One Health concepts. And we're working to expand this platform and eventually creating a formalized degree so that students could take classes and have that translate into something attainable for their own professions in order to do in-service training. Quantifying impact of some of GoHi's activities. I mentioned the One Health Summer Institute. We've had 875 plus participants in that. For our online trainings, there's been over 30,000 subscribers from over 90 countries for those trainings. As a grassroots impact, we've had 12,000 dogs and cats vaccinated against rabies in the countries that we're working with, and as well as involve students at Ohio State in Global One Health Initiative projects and trainings. Of course, this work wouldn't be possible with our funders, and this is some of them listed, very important for the work that we do and hopefully continue to do. And I just wanted to summarize with a few of my recommendations for how to prepare the next generation One Health workforce and how we move forward as academic institution. I think there's a few things that I've really outlined here, which is our researchers have to be doing cutting-edge research. They have to know what's coming down the pipeline in order to prepare our students for what they're going to be doing with their jobs. And so they have to be involved in cutting-edge research, and they have to be doing interdisciplinary work and forming these strategic partnerships to provide opportunities for our students to do that work and engagement upon their graduation. And then we have to take that research and translate it. How do we teach our students so that they're doing experiential? Liz Mumford used the term, I think scenario-based training, which I really liked, competency-based academic training that focuses on the process. Students I know are always focused on getting the right answer and getting towards that, how do we solve it, or what is the result, or what was the diagnosis. And so I think trying to shift back and looking at the process as being really important to that training. And allowing them, One Health education isn't passive. It really is an engaged process that our students, we have to shift the way we're training, and we can't have them be involved in these lecture scenarios as much as we have to have them actually talking to each other and problem solving. And then really trying to encourage student innovation. The next generation coming up are just really driven. They understand One Health. So trying to just arm them with information. Just this past year, I started integrating bee medicine into my zoonotic disease lecture. Now, Dr. Martin mentioned insect Armageddon yesterday. So bees are incredibly important to our foods supply and important pollinators. And just last year, the FDA required that veterinarians need to have a veterinary client-patient relationship with beekeepers in order to prescribe antibiotics. And we all looked at each other and said, well, how are we training veterinarians to be the prescribers of bee antibiotics? And we said, we're not. And so I started to integrate bee medicine into my curriculum, and sure enough, the next day I had students coming up to me asking me, can I be the mentor for their bee medicine club? So they're already doing wet labs and trying to get more experience so that they can be bee vets upon graduation. So sometimes just really arming them with information and allowing them to take that initiative is really powerful. So with that, I will conclude. Thank you so much for your attention.
This is Dr. Gray from Duke on curriculum development.
Thank you, Dr. Weiss. It's a pleasure to be here. I thought I'd try to give you an overview of our Duke One Health training and research. Here's what I hope to do is basically sort of explain our network, talk about our research themes, give you some examples of the work, and then our training programs, as well as how we communicate what we're doing in One Health. So we have a network that's rather extensive. This is founded on collaborations through the Duke Academic Network, as well as through research and training grants and a number of different international partners. We try with our international partners to do research after we do training. Duke is a top 10 medical school, so we have a lot of credibility with the developing world, and it seems to open quite a few doors. You might not know that we established a partner medical school in Singapore in 2005, and that too has been successful. And so it serves as a regional magnet for collaborations as well. And most recently, we've established a university near Shanghai. And this is an effort, again, with another local university, Wuhan, to sort of follow some of Duke's pedagogical activities. In each of these universities, we have a lab where I'm a faculty member, and we have a lab where we can do things in both training and research realms. Well, you might ask, well, how does a research institution like Duke do One Health? Well, we can't do everything, and we've certainly seen some wonderful examples in this meetings of diverse approaches to One Health. We've decided to focus on largely at the human-animal interface with an attempt to anticipate pathogens that might be crossing over. So often we partner with veterinarians in looking at both the animals and the people with intense occupational exposure to animals. We go where people and animals mix. You might know that Bill Gates is, of course, very concerned about respiratory pathogens, and that's our concern as well because of the rapidity with which they can move and basically supplant or circumvent all our protective and plans to stop pandemics. So we're focused largely on emerging respiratory pathogens. And you might say, well, how do you approach this with respect to your partnerships with the developing countries? We've chosen basically to work with veterinarians and to adapt molecular diagnostics that our partner labs can do in real-time assays and conventional assays for the influenzas A, B, C, and D, the new one D, adenoviruses, coronaviruses, and enteroviruses. Now you might not know this, but if you are hospitalized with a respiratory pathogen here, the chances are, if that pathogen came from animals, the diagnostics here would miss it. So we are, in ways, greatly appreciative of our veterinary colleagues who let us adapt their diagnostics and various different algorithms looking for emerging pathogens in these 4 domains. We've created these algorithms, and depending on the capabilities of our partners, they will do whatever they can do there first. Most often that means real-time assays, which we give them the reagents to do and the nucleic acid extraction kits. And then where we can, we will export either the entire lot of specimens or a subset and validate their work. So for these various studies, that's how we approach it. It strengthens their capability because we often have a check on their laboratory analyses, as well as permitting us to discover new pathogens. So in the recent year and a half or so, we've been to all these sites as funded by U.S. State Department and have helped them develop diagnostics for pathogen discovery. We also work in the United States looking at people who have intense agricultural exposures, as well as in countries where it's not so much agricultural animals or domestic animals, but it's wildlife. These are, we just completed a hospitalization, big study of 600 hospitalizations in the jungle of Borneo. We also go where the animals are in these facilities, and we see what pathogens are circulating in the domestic animals such that we can challenge the specimens we get from the humans to see if those are crossing over. And our students are foundational in all this. They actually do most of the work and get their academic credit for these adventures. We also have R01 funding from the NIH. This is a big One Health study partnership, a prospective study, following 300 agricultural or pig workers and 100 controls, getting 300 oral secretion samples per pigs per month, and many different environmental samples from 6 farms in rural China. We couldn't do this without remarkable foundational partnerships with both the military and with the CDCs in these 2 provinces. and we're able also to use some cutting-edge aerosol environmental health diagnostics in this work. We found plenty of opportunity for viruses to cross species, as has been alleged, with the freely moving of poultry in the swine facilities and the cohabitation of chickens, ducks, geese in between the pig barns with the workers often having no personal protective care. So it's a real setup for cross-species transmission, and I think it's something to be very concerned about. And we've lobbied hard that we need to work with our partners in countries like this that don't have the same biosecurity that we do, fortunately, in this country. I'll say that we've embraced environmental partnerships, environmental health science partnerships, and learned a lot. Even last night we had a big news story. News is breaking for our following of collecting aerosol samples in the MRT, which is the subway in Singapore. We're able to pull viruses from the air in these environments, and in many ways with these new equipments that are very sensitive combined with various different molecular assays, we can pick up things that we never could pick up before, and sometimes they're viable, they're live. So we've been engaged in, for instance, in my area, the Raleigh-Durham Airport. Last night this paper came out, the big subways in Asia, where there's plenty of opportunity for people to exhale whatever viruses they might be carrying and share it with people in the transport media. Recently we partnered in Hanoi at a very large poultry center. You might know that H7N9 is threatening to come into Vietnam just like H5N1 did. And the problem is Vietnam doesn't have the infrastructure to really resist it. And so we are in this large wholesale distributing poultry market with these samplers, and frankly, we're glad not to have found H7N9, but 90% of our samples showed other avian viruses. So these workers are intensely exposed to whatever's circulating, and this might be a new tool that we've basically gained from our partners in environmental health. With respect to training, we were involved in the generation of the first PhD program with a concentration in One Health at the University of Florida, and then the first U.S. master's program in One Health with such a concentration, and then a certificate. And about 4 years ago, I moved to Duke, but know that the people that were trained in these programs are now graduated, and many of them have found the credentials to be very job enhancing. And so I think it's very viable if you folks are interested in embracing degree programs. I think there's a market out there for these trainees. At Duke, we've long had a One Health intellectual exchange, which amounts to an evening course, partnering with UNC, University of North Carolina, and NC State, the veterinary school, where we give graduate credit to people from all three universities and learning about One Health. I brought this program from the University of Florida. This has been funded now, I think we're in our 12th year, in various different variations, but basically we call it a Duke One Health training program. It's 4 graduate courses, short courses in the beginning of the summer. These are taught by about 20 faculty in the area, and it's a lot of fun because the scientists that we bring in are actually practicing One Health, fighting diseases, and our students benefit from their knowledge. In some ways, it's a summer camp for scientists about One Health, and it's just eye-opening for many people involved. We've been engaged now, I think, from 2008, and had 338 or so trainees from multiple different countries in this or similar programs. In these programs, we can't do everything. It's a very short time period, and some of the people here in the audience have participated. We try to give an overview of what the other disciplines can bring to One Health, because in medicine I had no knowledge about food safety, really no knowledge about entomology, dairy production. Our veterinary colleagues had, may have knowledge about that, but they really didn't know what medicine did. So we try to introduce the value of all the disciplines in a One Health context, and then we encourage our trainees to go back and do something about it. Many of them have done so. We have NIH funding that's winding down under innovation project call. It's D43 training, and in this we partnered up 2 Mongolians of different disciplines with 1 American and sent them through this short course training as well as some additional training to design their own research that's One Health oriented against zoonotic diseases in Mongolia. Then we sent them to Mongolia to execute these projects, and they've learned a lot. And Lexi is waving here. Lexi's a former student. You see her picture here, and I think she got her 1 year of experience, 5 different manuscripts from this, and I think it's helped her to get into Tufts and to Harvard as well. Our current group there is chasing arboviruses because there's very little information about arboviruses in Mongolia. We also have a website where we try to record all our projects and all the folks involved. We have students heavily engaged with this. We have videos and a newsletter. If you're interested, you can sign up for this newsletter where the students promote our various activities. And I say it's a lot of fun because the students then become familiar with all the efforts and the professionals engaged in One Health. And let me just say that there's a tremendous movement to expand One Health, and you can see it documented in multiple ways if you need to argue for it. This is looking at the increase in the One Health activities as measured by web searches. We published a little bit about this in 2016, but you can see a 26% increase. You heard about the academic program increase that's markedly gone on, but there's other groups that are not necessarily academic that are embracing One Health. We're seeing research publications that are remarkable. In fact, in this nice review paper, they saw it as a 14.6% increase per year, which is faster growth rate than life sciences as a whole and for most biological subdisciplines. So I'd say One Health is getting some serious traction. And if you worry about funding, well, this is just a search on grants.gov. We looked at the search for the keywords One Health from 2007 to 18, $4 billion. If you can do it yourself. If you look, there's been a lot of money where at least in the description there'll be the words One Health, and most of the time it's related to the One Health that we know. With some very, very big grants such as USAID that we've talked about. We've also had the good fortune of bringing One Health conferences. We brought the first one to China, down in Guangdong, where SARS originated. This is an example in Mongolia where zoonotic diseases are very real, a lot of animal husbandry, and they really get it. And so the trick is to get the people from the outside to come to Mongolia. In this case, what we did is we made it a sort of a holiday experience with lots of different activities that you could tack onto the science, high-level fishing, the arts, etc. And we were able to get the international scholars to come, paying their own way, give a lecture, meet their counterparts, and from this, a number of One Health activities were generated. Finally, let me say, put in a plug for the Duke Kunshan University. Those of you who might know of students interested in China, you can earn a Duke degree at Duke Kunshan University. Everything's taught in English, and we're giving a lot of scholarships out to folks from the United States. The entry requirements here are not too tough, so if you're interested in that, I encourage you to look online at Duke Kunshan University. It's growing fast in the way that only China can do, and it's quite remarkable, and you can get engaged in One Health there through our One Health laboratory. So that's all I have. I just want to say it's an exciting area, One Health, for research and training, and we're really enjoying it at Duke University. Thank you very much.
So now I will go on to Dr. Ruiz.
Thank you very much.
Great. Can you hear me? Yes. First of all, thank you very much, Catherine and Jill, for the invitation. It's really a pleasure being here. It's been an exciting day yesterday. So thank you very much again for the invitation. It's been a pleasure, and I very much enjoyed the day yesterday, and I congratulate you for bringing this great community together. I think this is an excellent initiative. Let me very briefly go through my slides and my presentation. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm a disease ecologist. I have a background in disease ecology. I used to work with wildlife parasites, bacterial infections, and others. But I do work for a faculty of medicine. So I think that's quite interesting. And we've tried to set up some One Health activities at the core of the Institute of Global Health in the context of a faculty of medicine. And we are relatively young. I've been pushing for this now for about 3 years. But we're gradually getting there, and I'm quite excited about the progresses we're making and the perspective to actually get this whole One Health thinking in a faculty of medicine with a team involving, of course, medical doctors, but also vets, disease ecologists, herpetologists, etc. So that's the Institute of Global Health, where I work in Geneva. The Institute of Global Health, as I said, is really part of the Faculty of Medicine of the University of Geneva, and it is at the same time very strongly linked with the University Hospitals of Geneva. So the University Hospitals of Geneva are the biggest university hospitals in Switzerland, and we're very connected, particularly in my case, with the Department of Tropical Medicine and Humanitarian Medicine. They have a quite interesting center, very young as well, on viral emerging infectious diseases. But we're very connected to them, which I think it's also interesting. And they have a very strong, and I'll go back to that in a minute, a very strong tradition to humanitarian action and humanitarian work, which is kind of very much our DNA, if you want, in Geneva. The Institute of Global Health, at the same time, I'm trying to give you a little bit the context so you understand a little bit our approach to One Health and to Global Health. The Institute of Global Health, it's also located in this campus biotech that you see down there, so campus biotech. And the whole idea of this environment, which is, again, relatively young, it's bringing together life sciences, represented in this case partly by the University of Geneva, by the Faculty of Medicine, by environmental sciences, so really life sciences in its widest sense, including also the health component, of course, but also the more technical sciences, also data sciences, computer sciences, engineers. And these are here our colleagues from EPFL, which is a top school, engineering school, a very strong school in computer scientists. I like to call it our kind of Swiss MIT, if you want. So we very much trying to bring this life sciences component, health sciences component with the data sciences component all together. At the same time, this environment is literally 2 minutes, 5 minutes, I may be exaggerated, but 5 minutes away from Place des Nations, which is United Nations in Geneva, where tenements work from the World Health Organization. What I'm trying to say here, we are really at the core of international Geneva, of all this high concentration of organization. I mean, compared to New York, Geneva is a tiny place. It's much smaller than the Bronx, I would say. So it's super small, but at the same time, we have this huge concentration of international organizations, NGOs, MSF, Red Cross, among others, which play a critical role, and we're very much trying to connect with them. I mean, part of our mandate at the Institute of Global Health is connecting with this international environment, trying to very much build this cross-sectorial approach, and trying to link our research and our educational activities with international Geneva, and particularly with the World Health Organization. So we've been working for this for a little bit of time. We published this as a paper basically where we were trying to show how we thought we should move ahead with global health education, and you see some interesting names. So Antoine Faud, he's the director of our Institute of Global Health. He's a vector-borne infectious disease epidemiologist and mathematical modeler. But you see this is a combination. Ilona Kigbush, you probably know her. So the whole idea we've been pushing during the last 5 years to get this Geneva perspective into global health, into education particularly. I'm really focusing on education today. So we've been launching during the last years a number of programs, so a Master in Global Health, a PH.D. in Global Health, MOOCs, Massive Open Online Courses, I'll go back to that in a minute, and also studies in medicine at the Faculty of Medicine specifically. So just going back to some of the things, and this, let me just briefly explain how we see the One Health component into global health, and we already discussed about this, but I'd like to just reiterate this. We do see One Health as a critical part, as a necessary approach, and not a discipline, really an approach that is crucial, critical for global health. We really do not want to create a new silo, a new component, so it's a necessary approach to global health. In my second point, I think, and we've seen this in the various presentations yesterday, I think One Health is extremely relevant for present and emerging and future challenges that we're facing. And we've had amazing talks yesterday on emerging infectious diseases, on AMR. So it makes a lot of sense to have the One Health and to develop the One Health component for what is already happening out there, but what is probably also emerging in the coming years. And finally, in my last third point there, I think that, and I very much confirm this also from yesterday and today, One Health is at the same time an opportunity to strongly highlight and to explicitly bring to the table some disciplines that are more traditionally neglected from the global health arena, and that's conservation sciences, that's conservation biology, veterinary medicine, disease ecology, animal ecology, among others. But I think with the One Health component and bringing the One Health component to global health, we really see these disciplines, these expertises having a critical role, a critical added value to global health. This here, besides these components that I just described, I think these are some of the elements that we, or I personally and with our team in Geneva, we're trying to very strongly focus on this component as part of the way we see One Health in the global health education. So we do strongly believe that One Health is, of course, highly transdisciplinary. And I've tried to illustrate this by the fact that all our education in our students taking our courses, we try to connect them in the teaching activities that we do, we expose them immediately to this very rich, very cross-sectorial environment that we have in Geneva, so that they really have opportunities to interact with international organizations, with NGOs. So really a cross-sectorial approach. At the same time, I think that, and I really like that we brought this to the table today with citizen science. I think we also need, and we should at least use and involve as much as possible in our research activities, the citizen, the society. And there are a number of initiatives out there where citizens play a critical role. We're trying to do this a lot in our research, but I also see opportunities to bring this to education. So the citizen science, the crowdsourcing component, and linking our students with the society in their real practical work, I think this is something very interesting. International, I think I already described that. That's pretty obvious for the Geneva context. The humanitarian aspect, I think we're also trying to bring a lot this humanitarian component to the way we do One Health. I'll show you an example in a minute, but we're particularly interested in rural developing contents, looking at problems like snakebite, but also very much working in refugee camps. And humanitarian context, it's very much, again, part of our DNA in Geneva, with the Red Cross being born in Geneva, with Henri Dunant, MSF, etc. And finally, this double component, which I think very much links also with some of the previous talk, it's this combination between innovation and digital tools and youth. And you refer to youth, and I'm fully aligned with that. I think it's critical to bring this, which I think somehow the innovation component, the youth component come very much together, but we need to go for that in the One Health. And I think all the educational programs that we develop, we try to marry that innovative approaches plus youth, and I'll give you some examples. So let me very briefly show a couple of examples. These are massive open online courses, so I'm sure you all know about massive open online courses. You probably also know about this Coursera platform, which is probably the biggest platform out there. It's a Stanford-based, or at least at the origin, it was a Stanford-born platform. It's huge at the moment. So we've been producing a number of massive open online courses. I won't give you all the details, but this was the very first one we produced. It's a massive open online course on global health. It's a general one where we already introduced a little bit of One Health in here. This was a second one specifically during the Ebola outbreak. And finally, this is the one I would like to focus a bit more today, this one on global health at the human-animal ecosystem ecosystem interface. So it was a big collaboration with Institut Pasteur and other colleagues that you see there. But instead of having me giving you all the detail, let me show you a short video that I think illustrates pretty well the approach.
Human health, animal health, and more broadly, ecosystems or even planetary health are inexorably linked. This phenomenon is not new, and yet our world is changing at an unprecedented pace. And so are the ways we live, the way we interact with each other, with other species, and our environment. And yes, this brings a huge range of new and old challenges, but also opportunities for global health. Ebola, MERS, Zika. Are we ready for the next emerging virus? Antimicrobial resistance. What is it? Should we be worried? How is the world going to tackle it? Rabies. We're getting closer, but what are the challenges for its elimination? Biodiversity conservation. Why is this so important for global health? These are just some of the many questions that we would like to discuss with you during this MOOC on Global Health at the Human-Animal Ecosystem Interface, an interdisciplinary overview.
So there is a strong link between urbanizations and these outbreaks of dengue, of Zika, of chikungunya.
We can make a difference in controlling neglected zoonotic diseases with the tools we currently have and with the improved coordination among the sectors.
Snakes are responsible for 5 million bites yearly.
There is no health without a healthy planet.
Antimicrobial resistance is a threat to global health.
About 120,000 cases of zoonotic tuberculosis occur every year.
So that interdisciplinary collaboration is a key element of the One Health concept.
Of course, there are so many benefits of companion animals to our health.
We're really in the middle of a village, and we have 6,000 bats here.
Together, along with more than 30 experts and 20 institutions based in Geneva, Paris, and beyond, we invite you to join this highly interdisciplinary and international learning experience in global health. This MOOC is open to everyone, free of cost, and available in several languages.
Well, I guess that gives you a little bit of an idea. So some of the speakers that they were online yesterday. So Liz Manford was very much involved in this. So Liz Manford was that talk yesterday from Geneva. She was also very much involved. Chadia Wanus and others. And actually, very recently, we also got an update, and we had the opportunity to involve the new Director General of the World Health Organization, who also gave a very small talk. But this was an old video, so he's not there. But I tell you, he was on board. So these courses, I mean, they're great. I mean, we enjoy them, and we reaching out to a large community of students. But I'm quite critical with these courses, and I've been doing MOOCs now for almost 5 years. And I think that besides the fact that we assume that people follow them and they use them, and we know this, what we're trying to do during the last 2-3 years is trying to use them much more actively and trying to use these MOOCs also in the context of research, with the whole idea of moving from a massive open online course to a massive open online research. So trying to bring the research component, the One Health research component, and trying to build from these massive communities and some of the content that we're sharing with them. So this is just an example of a paper, and you probably recognize, for those of you that are very much into the One Health arena, so he's kind of our Swiss guru. So he's Jakob Zinstag, so from the Swiss Tropical and Public Health Institute in Basel, also in Switzerland. He's been doing an amazing work with rabies, with pastoralist communities, and very much on One Health economics and the whole added value of One Health. So we came up with this global flipped classroom. I guess those of you working in education know this idea of flipping the classroom, so basically giving material to the students in advance so that they get the basic knowledge on a certain area, so that when they actually meet the expert, they have the basics, so you can really immediately move to the next level in the training, in the exchanges with the students. So we've been doing this with courses, with massive open online courses, where basically students were both following the course online, and then we had a small, some grants to basically select a number of students based on some projects they pitched online, and they send this to us, and we took them over to Geneva for 1 week. So based on a massive community, we picked a number of projects, and we got them to visit Geneva and to work with us in a very concentrated week. So these are the students, again, with Jakob Zinzak, and again, what we were trying to do is to expose them as much as possible to this highly international cross-sectorial environment in Geneva. So they had the opportunity to visit the World Health Organization and present and pitch their project in front of One Health experts, if you want, at the World Health Organization. So you probably recognize here Stéphane Delarocque, from also working with Liz Manford. So that's the whole team working on One Health at the World Health Organization. We also organized this kind of hackathon approach, a very intensive, concentrated work, where the 12 students were basically surrounded by experts that we were trying to bring in, depending on their needs for their specific research project. Plus, we opened this to other students at the university. So we had computer scientists joining from faculties that were working on computer sciences and other schools, very much benefiting again from that environment, that campus biotech where we are based. So combining life sciences, health, and digital technologies. This is another example. So the Master of Global Health. So we're using the same project-based learning. So again, we work very closely with Liz Manford, and she was referring to the scenario-based. I like to call it project-based, which basically the same thing. So we very much use this project-based learning, particularly in my course. That's the course I teach. So it's a course as part of this program. It's a Global Health at the Human Animal Ecosystem Interface. This is not a face-to-face. This is a face-to-face course where we also use the online course that I just showed you before. It's a 2-year program. Very, very international, but also very interdisciplinary. So we got students from all over the world, but also very, very diverse in terms of disciplines. About 1/3 that come from the health domain, so medical doctors, nurses, and other health professionals. But we are also very strongly trying to get additional disciplines, so social scientists, anthropologists, technical people with backgrounds in engineering, computer sciences, and very much trying to build a highly diverse community here. This is not only happening in Geneva, so these students are based in Geneva, doing 1 year taking courses in Geneva, and then during the second year basically doing research internships in different organizations and institutions in Geneva and internationally. But in their research and in this project-based learning approach, we try to connect them as well with the places of the world where the problems are really happening, where the One Health situations are really, really important. So as I said, we have this very strong humanitarian component, and we've been working for some time, and particularly this group InZone, which is a platform at the University of Geneva. They've been working in refugee camps of the world for more than 12 years, I think. But we recently, about 2 years ago, we started working with them and trying to bring the health component, particularly the One Health component, to the work. They were basically trying to bring higher education to refugee camps, and we said, oh, why not bringing this One Health component to this environment? And it's been very, very successful. Actually, when we proposed our course 2 years ago, it was one of the most successful application processes. We reached more than 80 candidates, and it was unprecedented because they really felt this One Health component, the One Health approach, and was really potentially trying to help to solve some of the problems they were facing in their everyday life. So what we're doing here is working very much in a kind of a tandem, in this case a triangular approach, where we have our students in Geneva, those that are taking the Master in Global Health, with a number of students that are refugee students coming from different parts of Africa. We connect them with them every day, so basically I'll show you in a minute how it works. And at the same time, we have students at the University of Nairobi in Kenya doing PhDs that are also part of this triangle. So they all work as a triangle in very specific research projects, including snake bites, scorpion stings, rabies, waterborne diseases, vector-borne diseases. And what we've done this year for the first time is we created this competition, and we have these triangular teams. And we'll have one team, the best project, we'll have the opportunity in February. I'll be going to the camp in February for 2 weeks, and the winning team will come with us and basically test or validate the feasibility of the whole research idea. And what I think is quite interesting is that the students in the camp, they've been fully involved from the very beginning, first in the identification of the problem, plus the development of the whole project. And I prepared just this because I think we're using WhatsApp for this. I mean, we're using the Coursera platform that I showed you very initially, this one here, okay? So we're using the MOOC, basically the online course goes through there. But at the same time, we're using WhatsApp, and this is really quite aligned with what Dr. Masset highlighted yesterday. I mean, this is, in my opinion, quite innovative because they already use this. They use this every day. They're super used to WhatsApp. So it's, of course, not the best educational environment, or tool, but it just works. And the more we try to push them to interact through Coursera, the more they use WhatsApp. So it's happening through this, and they're super used to this, and our students are using this. So we're really combining a more formal platform to do education like Coursera, plus face-to-face teaching that we'll do in February anyway with them. But at the same time, there's so much going on through WhatsApp. Basically, our role, we guide the conversation, we observe the conversation through WhatsApp, but it's pretty impressive the volume of exchanges that are happening every day, every weekend. I'm following 5 different groups, and I tell you, it's just burning my WhatsApp. It's just a nightmare. But it's really, really great. It's exciting. So finally, what I'm also very much trying to do with the team in Geneva, we're also trying to gradually bring more of this One Health thinking, One Health education to the Faculty of Medicine itself and to the studies of medicine at the University of Geneva and to the university hospitals. So working with the Department of Tropical Medicine and Humanitarian Medicine, we have now, since 2016, every year, and this will be in January again, we have the opportunity basically to have a morning to where we teach One Health, where we bring a number of very specific examples to students in their 6th year. So these are students, these are medical doctors that are almost ready to go to the real world for the clinical work. So this is a first approach to bring that, but what we're trying to do gradually is moving this earlier in the program. So basically going to the 3rd year, where we could introduce One Health in a more general way. Also because at the 3rd year, they have this international, they have about 6 weeks where the students go abroad and they do some research or implementation activities as part of their studies. So we have there a quite interesting opportunity not only to get them to understand One Health, but also potentially to put it in practice in different parts of the world during these 6 weeks research fieldwork that they do. So this is something we are exploring and that we are going to develop over the next year. So that's it. I think I'll stop here, but I think, again, it's having all of us together and discussing this, it's a great opportunity. I thank, of course, the students in Kakuma and the whole team. This is part of our teaching environment. We have a couple of hubs like this where they have access to the internet. We're extremely impressive and dynamic community. I mean, I keep being surprised how motivated they are just to learn. And how important it is for them to acquire some basic tools that they can quite rapidly put in practice to have an impact just around their family or around their community. So these are some of our partners. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
So got a few minutes, about 5. Any questions for any of the speakers?
Hello, Dominic Portuno from Long Island University. First, thank you very much. I know and I'm sure other people were looking for some ideas on how we can build capacity for One Health at our universities, and all these were fantastic discussions. Thank you so much. Mr. Berrian had mentioned among the, I guess, overarching institutional goals, resource stewardship, making the resources more sustainable. Could each of you talk a little bit about what exactly that means for university and how you're operationalizing that?
So if the other 2 speakers will come down, there's...
Do you want us to speak, or...?
Yeah, I mean, that might be easier because I got the hand mic. I'll turn this one on. There we go.
I'll try to address that a little bit. So in order to stand up a PhD program at the University of Florida, we had to convince the administrators that there was both the need and the market. So, you know, you have to find out how that fits into your situation. But in Florida, we had all the components. We were a major multi-college university, so we could easily draw the talents all on the same campus. And we had an emerging pathogens institute, and so it was relatively easy. Now I know you're smaller, so you may have a harder time with that.
Yes.
I would agree with that. I think at Ohio State we have the benefit of having a very large campus with multiple groups and funders. As I shared with you, some of the funders that we had supporting our programs. And so I think diversity of funding, and as well as trying to work in a way that we're transitioning to the partners that we're working with, always thinking about what is the next step in terms of when that partnership needs to transition so that these countries that we're working in can be independently sustainable as well.
I'm going to ask you to repeat your question again, just to make sure I have fully understood it.
One of the items that have been mentioned was resource sustainability, making the resources, resource sustainability, resource marshaling. How do you go about that at your university? So I mean, those answers are completely relevant. Building funding, diversity of funding, and then that sort of repeat funding to make sure that these aren't one-off projects, that they continue on a regular basis. How do you go about that? Because as you said, that is a major challenge for us, and I imagine for a lot of universities that want to expand their One Health approach.
Sure. Let me just give you even a specific example. When we think about these massive open online courses, for example, and they're pretty expensive. So producing these courses is pretty expensive. But then it very much depends on the strategy of the university itself. So we have regular calls within the universities where they fund every year a number of new MOOCs in different domains. We've been pretty successful so far. But then, of course, I mean, you also can develop these type of courses with external funding. We also try to very much, as you were describing, to benefit from the network opportunities and collaborating with others. So, so I think building a network and having a strong commitment by the university
yeah, so I think, though, the bottom line is, will it bring in additional income to the university? And you have to think about how you can convince the policymakers towards that end. In our case, I mean, I think there's data that I just showed. There's funding available, there's momentum, there's student interest, and if you do it under the umbrella of global health, that's a good strategy as well, because of the intense both undergraduate and graduate level interest in global health.
So, in terms of time, is there one last question? If there's one last question, all the way up, give me 1 second.
Very nice. Good to see that we had all that stuff. I didn't know.
Yeah, we should talk later.
Sure. Stephanie Hernandez, Medical College of Georgia, medical student, and then M.P.H. student at Columbia. So for students, we're both students on the other side that are interested in One Health. How would you suggest that we get involved, whether that's research, practicums, collaboration?
Yeah.
Well, one thing you might do is explore being engaged in the One Health initiative, One Health Commission. I think the One Health Commission has a student organization, and a lot of students are very engaged there, attempting to bring the veterinary side closer to the human health side, and doing various activities. And then I think the other thing that it sounds like you're doing already is get on your resume or your CV markers that show that you have training and excellence in this field. Until we get some sort of a examination that says you are approved as a One Health person, that's about the only way you can establish a track record, is through your resume, publications, short courses, field work, that sort of thing.
You said you're medical students? Can I turn the question back on you and ask you how many of these student organizations are you familiar with in terms of the One Health Commission, the Facebook One Health Approaches group was mentioned yesterday. How familiar are you with those groups, and are those something that's relatively publicized in your field?
Not on the medical side. On the M.P.H. side, more so, but definitely not on the medical side.
Okay. So I would love to know how we can do a better job in terms of reaching, because I think there's a lot of training opportunities, lots of networking opportunities, and we are always looking for more medical representation. So we should talk in terms of how we can connect, because we're looking for you, and it sounds like you're looking for us as well.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with my colleagues. If I can add something on top of that, it's, I mean, if you're doing a PhD, if you're doing your research, I would strongly encourage you first that you, within your research, I don't know which stage of your PhD you are, but that you really manage to work with others and to collaborate with others, researchers in other disciplines. I would strongly encourage you to publish a paper with other colleagues from other domains that are completely potentially different from yours, only if there's a real added value. That's one thing. Plus, I would also strongly encourage you to get some of your work published in domains that are not necessarily the domain that is your own. So going beyond your own domain and getting some of your research published in other arenas, in other domains. So I would think that's a good illustration of a One Health touch to your PhD, if I may. Yeah,
so I heard M.P.H. or Ph.D.?
M.P.H.
M.P.H.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
what I thought I heard, which is fine, and I think it's
same approach. Same approach.
Yeah, good advice for both. But since you're at Columbia and since you're in New York, I will point out EcoHealth Alliance as a resource for those of you in terms of reaching out. I'm going to actually let my co-director have the last word, because if I don't, I'll hear about it.
So first of all, thank you very much. These were enlightening presentations. Quick question, because it's related to the first speaker's question for funding. How important are your grassroots movements? This is specifically to Amanda's presentation, and where do you get your funding for that? Is that institutionally funded? Do you reach out? Because I presume you do that without any preliminary data, just with an idea. How do you start that? Please share that with us and also the other speakers.
So some of the grassroots research that we do, our outreach is internally funded. So we do have support structures in place, internal grant supports, like one that's Connect and Collaborate, which is specifically trying to engage with the community, since that is an internal support from our institution. But now that we've been doing it for quite some time, there is a proof of concept. And when we have that proof of concept and the program evaluation piece in place, that makes external funding much easier.
We're about 95% external funded, so we get not for grassroots. When you say grassroots,
I mean like the very beginning, right? I mean you need to start somewhere with an idea, unless you have already PIs in your institution that have published in a specific area that you now want to expand. Let's say you have a new idea of an area. Do you get that money from Duke, or do you have other organizations you can reach out for like an interesting idea? How does it start in your institution?
Well, I mean,
Same for Geneva.
Yeah, I think getting money from the outside is always more compelling to Duke administrators. So that's the tack that we've taken. And then having some exhibit of success, then you can garner internal support. I think that's sort of our model.
Yeah, I feel kind of aligned with at the end of the day, it's really a combination of internal support plus external funding. I try to integrate as much as what we do in ongoing activities, so building on existing activities. So I benefit from existing funding, existing activities internally. But just to go to a specific example, I mean, this project with the Kakuma refugee camp, so we have now 5 research ideas. They submitted yesterday all the 4 project proposal, and they all very convincing, and I'd love to support of them all. We only support 1 for the next level, so they are gonna validate, test, prove, validate this in the field next year. But the next step is going for external funding for getting that projects to scale up or to be really developed. So ultimately, at some point, we need to combine the two, I think. Yeah.
We're going to have a physiology break, and we'll come back at 5 after. So can I have Jill and Catherine and Keith, and maybe a little applause for all the hard work they put in. And I'm going to let them have this synthesizing needs discussion. I promise we will get you to your Ubers at time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Weiss, and thank you all for being here, and our wonderful Jill Raufman and Keith Martin for all of your stewardship as we prepared this conference. I really, want to thank all the speakers for highlighting so many important dimensions, and I think Dr. Winaus, who I will note, she's a global health specialist, but she also trained in dentistry, so really a nice One Health approach, and a lot of different clinicians and practitioners and researchers and students, our future workforce in the room here, so thank you all for being here. Just a few kind of concluding remarks from my side, and discussion on next steps and opportunities, and we really also want to hear from you, but what really struck me from the discussions today and yesterday was, we all have a role to play in One Health in addressing these really, wicked, complex challenges like climate change, which are so big, in global scope, but also local scope, and their impacts that they have. And I think Dr. Anyamba said it so nicely about, I'm doing my part. I'm sharing my professional expertise and bringing it to these other sectors. And sometimes just having those channels in place is what is the catalyst, and you can start to really see the value add from the work that you're doing and how it fits into what's really needed for solutions. Every single speaker talked about ample partnerships, and I think that is so crucial. None of us can do this alone, and I was struck by the variety of partnerships. So thank you all for showing so many incredible examples of that. And I think it was so interesting to see, everyone kind of highlighted different dimensions of, we're working with life sciences, we're working with communications, we're working in really dynamic classroom settings, and working in some settings that, maybe we wouldn't think a One Health approach would be relevant, but of course it is, as Rafael so eloquently showed us. I think there was a real call to action about getting the opportunities out there and the resources like, the One Health Commission and the student group and efforts in CUGH. These things are already existing, and resources that we can all tap into and strengthen with our expertise and bringing in new perspectives. So Jill, if you wouldn't mind, telling us a little about next steps.
I just have a couple of things. Number one, I think what Dr. Gray said was so true, that so many of the fields, medicine, veterinary medicine, and other fields are so siloed, and we really need to bring them together. And I have to say that I'm so proud that we at Einstein, as a medical school, have hosted this talk, and I hope that this is the beginning. I hope it's just been a real education for everybody. It has been for me. And I know that one of the ways that I'm really going to be searching to incorporate this is in our student fellowship programs. I currently direct our Global Health Fellowship Program, where I send students all over the place. And I'm really going to try, and in past years I've incorporated things as I learn them. The importance of having an ethical program, a sustainable, a true collaboration. And now I'm going to try to see how I can incorporate this One Health aspect. And this is such a team effort. I welcome input and feedback from everybody. And I can tell you that we have discussed a lot the fact that this has been, I think, such an important conference. The speakers, every single speaker has been so fantastic, and I've learned so much. I think I can speak for all of us. And what we'd like to do is, in the coming weeks, we would like to get together and put together a piece that, well, a few pieces. We'll do an ebook based on what CUGH has done with their presentations, and we'd like to collaborate with all the speakers on putting together a piece that can be published about what we've done. audience members who are interested, please contact me. We really, this is a global team effort. And before I just turn it over to Keith, Tina wanted to talk about next steps. So, can we get a mic to Dr. Parker?
One thing I failed to mention was how researchers who are funded by NIH, for example, are required to deposit their sequences, their well-characterized sequences, into GenBank. Veterinary researchers are often not funded by NIH, and therefore that amount of data never is integrated with the human side of the data for antimicrobial resistance. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity for veterinary researchers or anyone working in One Health to be able to be inclusive, try to make these messages on how resistance mutations are transmitted from animals to humans or humans to animals. It's all the same. And I would urge you to look up the PATRIC database. It's the Pathobiosystems Resource Integration Center. They offer free annotation of genomes and a lot of platforms to be able to analyze your data privately. If you need any information, please contact me. I'd be happy to point you in that direction. I think it's a great place for us to make that linkage between humans, animals, environmental health.
I just want to second one thing, just from a point of view of having been on a lot of things. Those who collect large amounts of data, at some point, deposit your data publicly, whatever data set it is, because there are lots of people out in systems and computational biology and other things, and people who can look back at that data or may be able to look in and get other things out of the data. And it's one of those things that's happened for years amongst other things. In the old days, it happened with deposition of organisms. People would isolate an organism, work in it in their laboratory, and eventually they'd retire. And the organism would essentially retire with them because they never deposited it in a public collection like ATCC, and eventually their liquid nitrogen would disappear and they'd disappear. And it's interesting how many things have been lost over time. So I urge everybody that it's something that I serve on journals and things that we try and make implicit.
Thank you, Dr. Weiss. And I just want to echo what we've said over the last couple of days, but you can't say it too much. Putting on these conferences is a little bit like an iceberg. We see the top of that iceberg, but we don't see all of the work that goes behind it, which is colossal. So again, really, I just want to thank Jill and Catherine. I was happy that a big shout out to EcoHealth Alliance, because they're a fabulous organization that does amazing work and has done amazing work for a very long time. And also Dr. Weiss and Dr. Ashkar for having the foresight, along with Jill, as you said. This is a medical institution. We're talking about One Health. How cool is that? That's great. It's not evident to many institutions. So thank you so much for having the leadership and the foresight to do that. Before we go into, because when we had a conversation earlier, what would we do with this last piece? Your advice to us is going to be incredibly important. So before we turn it over to you to provide your final thoughts for this conference, know, as Jill said, that there'll be products coming out of this. One of our goals, and we had this discussion today, how do we include our medical colleagues, how do we include other colleagues here in the non-medical community and the medical community, as Dr. Juan showed, it's land use issues, it's ag, it's food, it's all of those folks that we don't normally in the medical world actually cross-pollinate with. But we need to do that. So how can we do that? So there are products that will come out of this particular forum. They will be amplified exponentially if all of us take those products and continue to share it, and ask our networks to share it with their networks. And that way we're going to do justice to what all of you have actually contributed to the last 2 days, and also put the platform forward, because all of us, conferences are a moment in time, right? But we need to do things between those moments in time. And we'll run our conference in March 7th to 10th, March 7th to 10th in Chicago. It's a plug for the CUGH conference because we're going to have Planetary Health, One Health at the conference. Some of you are going to be there. Jill and Catherine, EcoHealth, and Einstein, and Dr. Weiss, the teams here are going to be there. Some of you are going to be there. We need more of you there so we can build on what you have done here over the last 48 hours and be able to continue that momentum and share that with 1,800 people. And as we grow, we'll be like the good virus, right? It expands exponentially to actually kill the bad bugs. So that's what we're going to do. And so I just want to close and just say that, I mean, Dr. Berrian's presentation, I think, if we have a chance to get that and other presentations, you did an outstanding job on the education side. And to be able to share that, I think all of us can learn from that. Many of you have also showed the research gaps that we've seen, how we can apply our work, how we can also train the students of tomorrow not only to have the knowledge but the technical skills that when they go out, they're going to be able to work and translate the knowledge we already have that can have the impact. All of what we do, all of what we publish will only be as good as if we translate that and implement it to improve the lives of people on the planet. And I know that's all of us what we want to do here today. So I want to close before we go to you and start with what Dr. Weiss said with that, the incredible, powerful quote from Dr. Virchow, but change it a wee bit. So at the end of that, Dr. Weiss obviously correctly said that, to paraphrase Dr. Virchow, that medicine is a social science. As physicians, we're all social scientists, and it's up to the politicians to implement that. Well, I'll flip that a little bit. All politicians are not physicians or in the medical field or in the One Health field, but all physicians, all medical personnel, we are all potential politicians. Think about it. Because politics is only taking what we're doing to actually implement it so it has an impact. And thankfully, these days, with this little thing we have in our pocket, which has more power than the first spaceships that went into space, interestingly enough, there's more computing power into this thing that actually was on the first spaceships that circled the planet, which is kind of scary and also awesome at the same time, which is pretty empowering. So we're all significantly empowered to use with the powers that we have for the forces of good to change this world as we see it. So we'll turn it over to you, and please give us some very important advice into what we can do in the future.
Yeah, so first of all, I really want to applaud you like everybody else. It's been a stunning conference and difficult to organize. I think the key point, as Jill pointed out already, is really, and many speakers, by the way, at the bottom of the trainees, to link people from different specialties together, and if there have been so many messages, so much stimulation out of here, but this is the one thing we can very easily take to the next level tomorrow here at Einstein and everywhere else, regardless of any funding.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Jenna from the University of Missouri. I just had a logistical suggestion. I know we talked a lot about sustainability and conservation, but just as a casual observer, our lunches, we're all wrapped in plastic. So, and there was very little recycling in this facility. So it's something I noticed at my university, and we've really worked to encourage, and just as like a practical application of our message, I think we need to do a better job of making sure we're following what we preach.
Thank you. That's a really good point. I will definitely...
We've actually talked about it in university life. It was driven by New York City recycling, different than actually if we were just up the road a mile, we'd have all these separate bins for spreading stuff out. But we've actually talked about it in that committee. Large ships of state turning slowly, as they say.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm from Archive Global, and that's Architecture for Health in Vulnerable Environments. And I just want to add one little plug that there is also the question of the built environment, and that is an extremely important question that is not thought of in a lot of public health, global health circles, because it's a really big problem to tackle, and we don't necessarily have good partners in the architecture, engineering community to talk to. But I really encourage you to please talk to me, talk to others, because the built environment is so critical in helping people come out of extreme poverty and combat some of those diseases. So we do a program where we try to implement projects to the built environment. We're looking at the household level and targeting one specific aspect of the household level, and then measuring the impact before and after the intervention so that we can prove that there is an actual benefit to changes to the built environment. And so I would really encourage us to think about that when we think of this topic that we've been talking about for 2 days. And I encourage these conversations to continue, so please come find me.
Just please, actually, if you wouldn't mind sending me a note, because we will run for the 3rd straight year at our conference in March in Chicago, another session on the built environment, how we can actually deal with the 2 billion more people. And Dr. Wanus did a great job of describing that. But we've been working on that with Joe Ivy Buford, who was at the New York Academy of Medicine, and David Vlahoff and others. So we're aggregating the community to deal with exactly that. So let's connect, and we'll connect you with that group. Thanks.
Thank you to all the conference organizers. I'm a medical student here. So the previous comment reminded me about some resources we have on campus in terms of the built environment in hospitals and how they're designed and the waste production in hospitals. And there's some people that could definitely maybe be a part of this conference next year to talk about how hospitals are designed, or even the buildings around, like green roofs and urban architecture. I had a general question that I wanted to throw out to the group of someone that I know who is able to offer a lot of litigation services and is actually, when we talk about multidisciplinary efforts, I think that a lot of it, when we talk about policy, a big force could be through like legal systems or the law of the courts now, because other aspects of the political system are like a bit more, treacherous. So if some of these like land use issues or agricultural changes and protection of like certain lands could be of use, if someone with litigation skills could be of use in any of these fields, like that'd be really cool. Like I'd like to connect these people. Yeah, so if anyone has any suggestions of like organizations looking for lawyers, basically, let me know.
There is a Lawyers Without Borders, by the way, and at CUGH we have a global health law working group that Virginia Rowthorne from the University of Maryland leads. So we'll be happy to connect that person with that group.
And thank you. It's a great point. I just want to say, Olga Jonas recently organized a conference at Harvard and brought in many different schools. So there was the Harvard Global Health Institute, but also the Natural History Center. The law school, I believe, was also involved, and the Kennedy School. And so I don't know, Olga, if you want to say a few words about that, because I think it's a really excellent example of bringing in other sectors to address these issues in new ways.
To give an example of that, at the legal council at Einstein, there was actually a meeting at CUGH related to legal councils of universities related to global health activities, through which we sent the legal counsel to that particular meeting. So there are actually these sort of ways for legal, those interested in legality to connect. Another example of that sort of integration, which is a One Health training, and a shout out, is the Emory competition.
Yes.
The medical students run, where the teams that go down to Emory to tackle a health problem, it's very similar to what you're doing in Geneva, except there's no payoff that you'll go and implement what you're doing. It's really an intensive problem. You get a problem, you work with a team, but you have to go down with a multidisciplinary team, including business, law, public health, medical students, or some combination. And then you're given a problem, you work on it, and then you present the problem to judges. Mm-hmm. Your payoff being you won the trophy, or the payoff really being that you got the experience, and it's been transformative for many of our students. Yeah. And I think one of the other things I walked away from here, and what I like to hear, would make my daughter, who does STEM education at a museum say, is that experiential education in this field is really useful. That sitting there in a lecture hall and having someone lecture to you is not always just the way to really motivate the students and to really get that ability to work in a team and the ability to think cross-discipline. And that's part of, I think, the evolution of how we're trying to teach. It was very interesting to see that those colleagues that presented the successful programs were basically talking about exactly that. It was forming teams, implementation, self-learning, self-motivated skills on top of clearly the background that you need to get, but the background not being the focus necessarily. You come prepared, you do the MOC course, you do the MOOC course, and so on. Are there any other questions? I didn't see anyone else raise their hand or comments. Well, I'll take it back to you to summarize a last few minutes for the meeting.
I think everybody's tired, and it's been an incredible moment. Just a couple last moments. I think we were still speaking last night about Olga Jonas's presentation and about the costs of inaction and the costs of action. So that was a very powerful tool that we can use in terms of affecting political behavior. Secondly, Dr. Ruiz's one thing we were discussing, of course, is something we didn't maybe mention enough of, but it was touched on, is how to mainstream conservation into development as a way to both deal with infectious diseases and non-communicable diseases, and more broadly, the social determinants of health. It is an untapped opportunity to be able to do three parts of a very complex problem. And lastly, just to know that that we're all individuals and we all are actors on this planet, so what we individually do can have an effect. So the summation of all of our actions can actually amount to some pretty big changes for our environment and our health. And then if we ratchet up a little bit to our institutions or our communities, it doesn't have to be governments federally who are going to act. If they're not willing to act, at levels far below that, we can act. And if all of us do that, then we have a movement for change that can have an incredible impact. Because even if governments actually put policies in place, if they're not acted upon, they're just pieces of paper. The real rubber hits the road in the individual, group, community actions and the implementation of those actions that can actually put us on a path towards a more sustainable planet. So I just don't, do you want to say anything else?
So just one thing. So if there are participants who would like to be included in the next steps, please feel free to contact us at global@einstein.yu.edu. Should I say it one more time?
It's in the program.
It's in the,
it's in the program, and it's true marketing to be global at.
Yeah, thank you, and please do reach out. We heard a lot of really good discussion and questions about, your needs for your institutions, and please, make us aware, because I think sometimes we assume, we can't offer that much there, but I think collectively, we can. So, please reach out and let's keep this, discussion continued and amplify it, at CUGH and Next Steps. But thank you all again for being here and all your amazing contributions.
Really. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. So, having played Vanna White for most of the meeting, I will play Vanna White and point to the exits, some food left over. And very much thank you for sharing your expertise and your time with us, and for contributing to what hopefully will be a community resource. Thank you very much for coming to Einstein. And thank you to our partner, EcoHealth Alliance, and also to CUGH for providing such support. Take care.